In Palestine, the Israeli siege of Gaza continues on its 155th day. Occupation forces killed dozens of civilians in the last 24 hours. In Haiti, government attacked public institutions throughout Port-au-Prince as violence continues to escalate. The electoral campaigns for March 10th parliamentary elections closed Friday in Portugal. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, the Israeli siege of Gaza continues on its 155th day. Occupation forces killed or wounded dozens of civilians in the last 24 hours. According to local media, at least 23 people were killed in the city of Han Yunis. Another 6 deaths were reported in the northern city of Gaza and another 9 near the Jabalia refugee camp. Similar attacks were also reported near Nusayrat refugee camp, where at least 5 Palestinians were killed. In the last 24 hours, 3 children were also reported dead due to malnutrition and hunger in the Al-Shifa medical complex, bringing the number of deaths due to lack of food in the Gaza Strip to 23. In Palestine, the urban layout has been taken down by the ongoing airstrikes and bombing from the Israeli occupation army. This destruction also includes mosques and churches. Our correspondent in the area, Nur Harasin, brings us the details.
According to satellite photos, more than 80% of Gaza's buildings were destroyed by the Israeli continuous bombings, attacks and airstrikes on the coastal enclave. Also, according to statistics by the Palestinian governmental office here in Gaza, more than 2,500 of worship places were attacked here in Gaza, either totally damaged or partly damaged, including mosques and churches. Right now I am inside the Ash-Shabura refugee camp, and what you are seeing is the what was remained or the rubble of the Al-Farouq mosque, which is one of Rafah's biggest mosques here in the city. However, this mosque was totally destroyed, and here we have the worshippers who are started praying in the streets. They tried to build with some bricks, kind of a wall surrounding them so they can separate themselves from the pedestrians and practice their prayers. And this is happening while we are only one day away from the holy month of Ramadan, this month where Muslims around the world are known to fast during the day and also practice 5 prayers. Nur Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
The government of Palestine warned that the Zionist regime of Israel commits crimes mainly against women and children in the territory. Palestinian authorities cried out for peace and the rights of women of their state and condemned the human rights violations by Tel Aviv. Through a statement, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry highlighted the work of women of the region in the struggle for freedom and their resistance against the actions of the Israeli occupation forces. On the occasion of the commemoration of International Women's Day, Palestine denounced that after the intensification of the Israeli siege on Gaza, more than 70% of the victims have been women and children, which represents a crime against humanity.
I'm Nur Louhedi, a medical doctor at Liquid Specialty Hospital. I was working at the Shifa Medical Complex for more than 45 days until I forcibly evacuated the Shifa Medical Complex. Me and my family now in the southern of Gaza, we are facing this genocide day and night. We are suffering from the lack of food, lack of medications, lack of support. Our voices are not heard by the world. My message for everyone at 8th of March, the International Women's Day, is to advocate for Palestinian women, to raise our voices, to stand for us. We need your support, we need your voices to be heard, and we need our situation to be known by everyone. We need fire to be seized now.
In Palestine, more than a dozen preterm newborns have died of malnutrition-related causes in the last 5 weeks at Rafah Emirates Hospital. According to local authorities, mothers and newborn children in Gaza are suffering from malnutrition and dehydration in the midst of a severe shortage of food and supplies caused by the constant attacks of the Israeli forces. On the other hand, the Palestinian government denounced that the Israeli occupation continues to prevent the entry of humanitarian aid through the Rafah crossing, which also contained maternity materials. The authorities additionally warned that the continuous bombardment against health centers and medical personnel by the Tel Aviv army continues to cause the collapse of the health system. The European Commission announced the launching of a humanitarian maritime corridor to help the Palestinian people from Cyprus. The humanitarian corridor will allow aid to be sent to Gaza with the support of the United Arab Emirates and allied countries. In this regard, the President of the European body, Ursula von der Leyen, announced the allocation of €250 million to be distributed during the current year. She added that the humanitarian corridor will begin operations next Sunday, March 10th, so that supplies will arrive as of Monday. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa called again to end the human suffering inflicted by Israel on the Palestinian people. The South African president's statements come after he filed a request for an intervention before the International Court of Justice seeking to contain a catastrophic famine in the Gaza Strip. Ramaphosa said it was appropriate to make an urgent declaration, especially to address the situation in the city of Rafah, south of Gaza. The South African president called for an immediate and humanitarian ceasefire with the aim of getting food to the Palestinian population, which is currently suffering from severe hunger. On Thursday, thousands of U.S. citizens gathered outside the House of Representatives to protest during the State of the Union address, demanding to the Biden administration an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The current U.S. government is harshly questioned for its attitude towards the conflict in Gaza. In this sense, experts indicate that Biden arrived at his speech with a very damaged popularity due to his silence and complicity in the genocide in the occupied Palestinian territories. In this way, locals who rallied demanded the U.S. stop sending arms and using their taxes on weapons that kill women and children. They also called on the government to stop blocking the request for a ceasefire at the UN Security Council. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Throughout Port-au-Prince, the country's capital, heavy shootings were reported on Friday night in several areas of the capital and near the National Palace. According to local reports, armed groups carried out simultaneous attacks against several police stations and reportedly burned the Interior Ministry. At the same time, criminal elements attacked the walls of the international airport to allow the access of individuals to the runway. The Haitian government declared a state of emergency for 1 month in the Western Department and a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. until March 10th. The UN called on the international community to finance the multinational mission in Haiti despite rejections by regional leaders of what they consider a military invasion against the Caribbean island. Amid escalating violence by paramilitary groups, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for financial support to the multinational mission in Haiti. Guterres also reiterated his call to take immediate measures to advance in the political process leading to elections in the Caribbean island. The UN estimates that to solve this crisis in Haiti, it would be necessary to raise some $674 million in 2023. The peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean commemorated International Women's Day by raising their voices for equal rights. Women from several countries in the region honored the courage, strength, and achievements of women around the world in the face of the challenges of inequality in public and private sectors. In this sense, thousands of activists carried out activities such as forums, marches, and rallies during this day. On the other hand, the date reminds the world of women's struggle for equality, recognition, and the effective exercise of their rights. Across different countries, women fight for the struggle of their people, demanding a more just world amid an increasing world crisis. Women's organizations in El Salvador demanded their rights to be respected and rejected dismantling of the institutions responsible for supporting them. The National Confederation of Salvadoran Workers report that violent acts against women's labor rights persist. The Permanent Table for Labor Justice and the Foundation of Studies for the Application of the Law registered 21,600 dismissals of women in the last 4 years in public institutions. Likewise, the Legislative Assembly is expected to issue a pronouncement on the occasion of International Women's Day.
The message that we want to send today to the great Bukele on this International Day is that the women will not give up. Today, more than ever, we call on the maquila workers, women in the communities and in the different state institutions to organize ourselves, to mobilize and to counteract these policies that are doing so much harm in the Salvadorian women. Long life International Women's Day.
Hace 2 años, por instrucción del presidente, fuimos a ratificar.
2 years ago, on the President's instruction, we went to ratify 5 agreements, among them the 190, which is the elimination and eradication of the world of labor. Today, we have put that in context, and it is on March 8th. And as a government, we have a firm commitment to fulfill to some extent many rights that are still invisible for women. Today, I was invited by the Public Services International with its organizations to a meeting with women leaders. Here, there's a presence of women leaders, only women leaders, leaders who are representative of heads of organizations. I have come to meet with them.
A group of women in Guatemala demonstrated in front of the different public institutions to demand respect for their rights during the commemoration of International Women's Day. From early hours and with the participation of underage girls, whom they called the Girls' Bench, the demonstrators gathered in front of the headquarters of different government agencies with banners demanding justice and democracy for the country. Demonstrators also called for a caravan to other areas of the capital as part of the activities in which they protested against feminicide and demanded transparency in the electoral processes, raising slogans that said, "We want us alive, not one more death." In Venezuela, the government announced the creation of the Venezuelan Women Mission in the framework of International Women's Day. At an event in the National Pantheon of the city of Caracas, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted the role of women in all social struggles and the importance of safeguarding their social security and rights. She also noted the need for the creation of a feminist movement and urged giving more power to women in the country's social-political spheres. In this sense, the head of state evoked the leader of the Venezuelan Revolution, Hugo Chávez Fría, and his fight for equality and absolute rights of Venezuelan women.
And it is with the arrival of our beloved Commander Hugo Chávez that it becomes visible, empowered, and women come to occupy a fundamental space in the leadership, in the struggle, in the construction of our country, the creation of the National Institute of Women. Who did it? Chávez.
In Brazil, thousands of people took to the streets of the 35 cities today to demand equal pay for women, an end to femicide, and end to the genocide in Gaza. Our reporter Brian Meir has more.
In dozens of cities across Brazil, tens of thousands of people took to the streets on March 8th for International Women's Day, in protests that were organized by labor unions, feminist and LGBTQ+ organizations, and working-class social movements like the MST.
March 8th is a day of struggle and organizing, when we come out to the streets to fight sexism and misogyny, to show that we women want to be free from the patriarchy and want a world that welcomes us, with security and guarantee our access to rights.
International Women's Day was first celebrated on March 8th in the Soviet Union in 1917. It soon spread through other socialist countries in Europe. Adopted by the Western feminist movement in the 1960s, the United Nations began promoting it in 1977, and now it is commemorated all over the world.
On a worldwide level, on this International Women's Day, we protest the genocide and murders that are taking place in Palestine, murders of women, who we know are the ones who give life, who give us our children, and murders of the children themselves. This is taking place on a larger scale in Palestine, and we declare that this is an act of genocide.
The CUT Labor Union Federation confirmed that marches took place in at least 35 cities. Brian Muir, TeleSUR, Recife.
We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The United States court finds former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez guilty of drug trafficking. The ruling was issued by the Southern District Court of New York and was based on 3 counts of drug trafficking-related crimes on Friday. The jury spokesman delivered the verdict, stating that the former president was charged with conspiracy to import illicit substances into the United States, as well as crimes for the use and carrying of firearms, in addition to aiding and abetting their use, carrying, and possession. The electoral campaigns for March 10th parliamentary elections closed Friday in Portugal. Voters will go to the polls on Sunday to elect a new government to replace that of Socialist Antonio Costa, who has not yet clarified the accusations against him for irregularities committed during his administration. Corruption has been at the center of the electoral debates, with different parties including proposals to put an end to it in their programs. During the elections, polling stations throughout the country will remain open until 7 p.m. local time, amid social discontent with the ruling class and the inflation. The United Nations Security Council called Friday for a ceasefire in Sudan to coincide with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, as conditions in the country continue to deteriorate. 14 countries backed the resolution proposed by Britain, with only Russia abstaining on the vote that called on all parties to the conflict to seek a sustainable resolution to the conflict through dialogue. Fighting has been raging in Sudan since April 15, 2023, pitting the army of General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against the paramilitary rapid support forces of General Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, the former number 2 in the military establishment. It has also left thousands dead and millions displaced.
We further urge the warring parties to build trust and seek a sustainable resolution to the conflict through dialogue. President, the situation in Sudan is of grave concern, and the humanitarian needs of Sudan's population are acute. We support the work of UN agencies and civil society organisations in their efforts to support those in need and underline the need for full, rapid, safe and unhindered humanitarian access. We welcome all mediation efforts to help achieve an end to this brutal conflict.
The Russian deputy representative, on the other hand, justified her country's abstention by stating that only the Sudanese must and can determine their future, limiting the international community's role to act as facilitators.
We are confident that the Sudanese bear primary responsibility for the situation in the country. They themselves must and can determine their future. The job of responsible representatives of the international community, including members of the Security Council, is to facilitate that, and not to impose their own rules and principles on sovereign states.
The government of Vietnam condemned the aggressions against vessels in the international maritime routes. Vietnamese authorities denounced the attacks, which they describe as violent and inhuman, perpetrated in the Gulf of Aden on a ship flying the flag of Barbados by the Houthis. In the action, a Vietnamese crew member died and 3 others were wounded. The authorities detailed that the vessel had on board 15 Filipinos and an Indian sailor who were rescued by Indian Navy and taken to Djibouti, which will provide necessary assistance to return to their country of origin. It will also arrange for the repatriation of the bodies. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.